Hey guys, welcome to a quick video here on TPA, TPP, and TAA. I did a previous video on this, two previous videos, and this is a follow-up answering some questions that people still had and some common misconceptions on this issue. Hopefully I can clear everything up for you guys here today. So starting with Craig Fisher, he asks, there is TAA, TPP, and TPA. What is Senator Cruz's position on each and why? Okay, so let's start with TPA. Senator Cruz supports TPA. He supports free trade. TPA is also known as fast track, and that title makes people uncomfortable because it sounds like it's going to give Obama what he wants. You have to look beyond that name. There are a lot of strings attached to fast track. If that is a route that Congress and the president choose to take when negotiating a free trade agreement, there are a lot of restrictions placed on the president. There are a lot of additional things he has to do in exchange for Congress to give up the amendment process. Number one is that Congress currently is not involved in negotiations. TPA brings Congress into the negotiations, and in exchange for that, they don't allow amendments. The reason they don't allow amendments is because foreign countries who are on the other side of the table will not accept any agreement if that agreement is going to be changed at the last minute by Congress. So what they do is they bring Congress in to the negotiations so they can change them before they go to a vote. If there are any amendments made, the amendments happen during the negotiation process and not during the final vote. And that prevents any confusion so that everybody knows what exactly they're voting on. This is the only way any free trade agreement has ever been passed. If you support free trade at all, TPA is the only way to do it. There is no other alternative. Some people say, what's wrong with the way it is? The way it is doesn't work, and it hasn't worked, and we've had TPA for over 80 years. It's misunderstanding to think that TPA is unique to President Obama. Ronald Reagan had TPA. So do we call it Reagan trade? That's not what it's about. It's just protocol and how they go about discussing things. The Constitution gives the president the power to negotiate these deals, and it gives Congress the power to approve or reject them. They do not lose those powers in the TPA. Instead, they just agree to work together on the negotiation process and get it through quicker and smoother. Senator Cruz is for free trade, so that's why he supports TPA. There is nothing secretive about TPA. That bill has been up on Senate.gov ever since it was proposed, and that's the only thing that's been voted on so far. As far as TAA, TAA is a welfare program to compensate displaced workers. It was placed into TPA by some Senate Democrats who voted for it. They could not get the bill passed without the support of those 14 Senate Democrats, and that was what they wanted in exchange for their support of this bill. Um, that is not a conservative portion. That program there is liberal, and there's a lot of conservatives that have a problem with it, including Ted Cruz. But what they said was that this is what we needed to do to get it done, and in general, it was a bigger plus than it was a minus, and so they're willing to take the hit. This was the reason why Senator Mike Lee did not vote for TPA, even though he's in support of TPA and he's in support of free trade. TAA made him too uncomfortable. He thought that they were giving up a little bit too much. Heritage Action also has this view. Heritage supports free trade, and they say there's a lot of good things in TPA, the transparency of the process, and the fact that this is the only way to get a free trade agreement in place. But they said TAA was a poison pill and kind of ruined TPA. You can remove it and still keep TPA. They're separate things. They just attach them together to get support of some Democrats. TPP is the very secretive bill. Now, this is the big monster that everybody's upset about. TPP, number one, it's secretive, so the only people who have read it are senators who have been given access. And this includes Jeff Sessions and Ted Cruz. Now, because only senators have been able to read it, you haven't had any think tanks like Heritage, like Cato, like Freedom Works, and on and on and on. You haven't had these think tanks going in there, reading the bill, analyzing it, and telling us what is in it, and including the senators and congressmen. They have so many staff members that analyze this at Heritage that a lot of conservatives rely on Heritage to tell them exactly what this means, because they're so long, they're so technical, it's hard to understand. For somebody like Jeff Sessions to claim he understands what's in TPA is kind of hard to believe. And if of anybody there in the United States Senate, the most capable lawyer and the most capable expert on these matters is Senator Ted Cruz. And when he comes out and says, I've read it, there are things that I have problems with in it. I disagree with the secrecy of it, and I think it should be transparent. However, a lot of the accusations that are made, such as that it gives away U.S. sovereignty, that it has a secret immigration loophole, all those, he says they're blatantly false. I trust Senator Cruz because he knows the law a lot better than the other guys. And as much as I like Jeff Sessions, he's not a legal expert the way Ted Cruz is. So Ted Cruz has not supported TPP. He has said publicly that the deal is not finalized, and it doesn't make sense to say yes or no on a deal that's not finalized. He wants to see what the final terms are before he gives his comments. He said he does have problems with a lot of things that are in TPP, and he believes that it should be made public, and the secrecy is a really bad idea. His words are that it's idiotic and stupid to keep hiding this from the American people. He wants it public. TPA would require that in order to use fast track, this deal must be made public. That's one of the good things about TPA. So Senator Cruz doesn't support TPP. As of right now, he wants to see the final deal and the final details. He wants to see it analyzed by outside groups like Heritage and Conservative Review, FreedomWorks, Cato. He wants to see them take a look at it so they can point out if there are any really bad problems hidden in the fine print. Now the next question, Patrick Wall. He says, please be sure to explain to people how making trade is seen from another country. They don't want to negotiate only to be shot down by Congress. Okay, so yeah, other countries don't want to waste their time negotiating with the president if that deal is not going to be the one that's voted on by Congress. If they're going to change it, add amendments to it, then they're going to say, hey, what's the point of negotiating? You know, this is a waste of time. So they have to negotiate with fast track, which says whatever deal is agreed on by the country, by president, and this time you bring in Congress, so all three agree at once. Then when it's put up to a vote for Congress, it doesn't change. It's the same bill. It gets either approved or rejected. Monica Walker Mimir asks, is it secret? And if so, has Cruz demanded the secrecy be lifted? This may be the cause of so much dissent. If he would come out and publicly say, I withdraw my support until everything is provided to the public, he may go a long way of satisfying people's angst. Well, a couple things to address here. Number one, withdraw his support. He does not support TPP, so there's no support to withdraw. And he said that he wants it to become public, and he's waiting until the final details have been released. Is it secretive? TPA is not secretive. TPP is secretive, and under TPA, if it is proved, it would require that TPP be released to the public and given that 60-day review period. So TPP does address the problem of secrecy, and it is actually a good thing, and a lot of conservatives understand that. There are legitimate criticisms of the Trade Act, which included TPA. There are legitimate criticisms of the Trade Act, but I don't think that there are a lot of legitimate criticisms of TPP, and we're going to go through a couple more here. The next question is from Douglas Correa. What I would like to know is this. Since Ted Cruz and Mike Lee have been a great team and have worked together so many times, why did Senator Lee vote against it, and what are his objections to the agreement, and what does Ted have to say about them? Okay, Mike Lee has the same position as Heritage. Mike Lee believes that TPA has a lot of good arguments. There's a lot of good arguments for TPA, and he believes in free trade. However, Mike Lee had a problem when they attached TAA to it. When TAA was attached to the bill, he withdrew his support. That's the same position Heritage has. They really like TPA and free trade, but once TAA was added to the bill, which is the welfare for displaced workers, they said, hey man, that's a little too much, you know, we can't go that far. John Garza says, what is Heritage's position on TPA, TPP, and TAA? Like I said before, Heritage says that there are good and bad arguments for TPA, and in general they agree with free trade. They're big believers in free trade, actually, huge advocates of free trade. And since TPA is the only way to get any free trade agreement passed, if they say if we have a president who is negotiating a good deal, or if we have good deals being proposed, they are in support of TPA. TPP, they have not come out and stated any position on TPP. They have concerns about it, but since they can't read it, they haven't said anything about TPP. TAA, they do know what that is. It's the welfare program for displaced workers. They're strongly against TPA, and they believe that approving TAA would have approved set the stage to approve the Export Import Bank to renew it, and they were really against TAA. That is the reason why they opposed the Trade Act of 2015. The Trade Act of 2015 included TPA and TAA, and they say we wouldn't have opposed it if it was just TPA. They weren't going to score it. They were just going to let conservatives decide which side they wanted to support. But when they added TAA to the bill, the Trade Act, they said no. In that case, we can't support that, and we're going to lobby our representatives to vote no because of TAA. Rudy Wallace asks, if it has been secret, then it shouldn't even be voted on. Well, it's more of a statement. If it's secret, then it shouldn't be voted on. Well, TPP hasn't been voted on, and that's the secretive one. TPA is not secretive, so that really doesn't apply in that case. Sharon Schmidt says, Senator Cruz says TPA is basically what Congress has been doing for the last 80 years. Senator Sessions says, we don't need TPA because Congress already has that authority. Which is it, and why change it now? Well, technically, yes, the president has the power to negotiate, and Congress has the power to approve or reject. Technically, yes. However, because there are so many people in Congress and so many different opinions in Congress, as soon as you bring any bill or any agreement before Congress, they're going to want to start changing it, editing it. Somebody's going to want to make something different, and that doesn't work when it comes to free trade agreements. So there needs to be some kind of protocol saying, hey, we do still get the final vote, and the president is still the negotiator, but Congress should oversee and give their input before it comes to a vote so that there's no need for those amendments. They can just vote it up, yes or down. And that's what TPA is about. Senator Sessions wants, he's a protectionist, and he's against free trade in general. He has a different position than Heritage. He has a different position than Mike Lee, than Ted Cruz, than all the conservatives pretty much out there. He is against free trade overall. And so he doesn't care if it doesn't work. He doesn't care if it gets blocked no matter who the president is. So that's why he keeps saying we can go back to it. However, I will point this out. This wasn't always his view. Under President Bush, Senator Sessions voted for TPA, a version of it back then. So if he says the Constitution already gives Congress that authority and there's no need for TPA, why did he vote for it before? Why did he change his mind now? Because there's a contradiction in what he's saying. If the Constitution already says that, there was no need for him to have voted for it in the past. But he did, because he knows that that's the only way to get a free trade agreement passed. And there's a lot of jobs that depend on it. But in Senator Sessions' case, he doesn't believe free trade is good for the United States. Now, whether you agree or disagree with that statement, what he's saying about the Constitution and TPA is incorrect. Debbie Malone says, why are Republicans going along with the secrecy of the bill without demanding it be made public? Well, Ted Cruz is demanding it be made public. The rest of the Republicans, we can't speak for them, and we're not supporting them for president. We're only worried about what Ted Cruz is doing, and he is demanding that. She also asked, why is this a living bill, which allows it to be changed after it is voted on? Now, that's not true. There's the words living document somewhere in the beginning of the document, like an introductory section. And Cruz has addressed this. He said that's very misleading. Though it says that, when you read the actual text, there is nothing in the text that says these changes will be made without the approval of the governments of each country that's involved. Every change that's made to these agreements, he's specifically referring to TPP in this case, must be approved by the government that's involved. So Congress has to vote yes on any changes that are brought forward, and the president would have to sign them. They can't just make changes without Congress's approval. That's not true. And that's been said by a lot of people who have never read TPP. And I'll address a couple of those in a bit. Michelle Adams says, how can Cruz not categorically say no to TPP? The reason why he can't say no to it yet is because on principle, the final details have not been released. So you have to wait for all the facts to come out before you give your opinion. That's just the mature thing to do. That's what a lawyer is trained to do, and somebody like Ted Cruz is trained not to make the mistake of giving his opinion before all the facts are out. Because then you look really, really bad if you're wrong, and the final deal is totally different than what you've been claiming, such as what Senator Sessions is doing. He's going to look really bad when the final agreement is brought out and a lot of things he's been claiming are not true. Specifically on that immigration part. Now, Trisha Ann says, I think what got a lot of people really nervous and angry was the WikiLeaks leak. Why are we listening to them? Why are conservative commentators using their leaks? I don't know if Cruz is even aware, but they played a big part with those I was debating on Twitter. Okay, so Trisha, WikiLeaks did release a section of the agreement, and there's a lot of speculation that this came from one of the foreign countries that's involved. Now, the part that they released on immigration did not include the text that said, according to Senator Cruz, that the United States is explicitly exempt and not participating in the immigration section. There's a section that says these different countries will make exceptions for immigration based on employees from different companies moving back and forth. But the United States, according to Senator Cruz, who's read the bill and read all of it, not just the section released by WikiLeaks, says the United States is specifically exempted from this, and we do not participate in that. If it's brought before Congress as it was written in the final draft, in the current draft that Cruz had read, we would not participate in that at all. So it's not true when people say that there's some kind of immigration loophole. That applies to other countries. It doesn't apply to us. Every country gets to choose what sections he wants to participate in and which ones he wants to stay out of. Fern Love says, Joshua, how do we reply to the naysayers' comments, or should we? The more we try to explain and give sources as proof, the more heated it seems to be getting. They're getting more aggressive and nasty. I'll tell you why. The reason why they're getting more aggressive and nasty is that, number one, a lot of people are given false information and they're trusting sources that they shouldn't be trusting. And number two is that a lot of them have an agenda. These are people who never supported Senator Cruz. These are people who still don't support Senator Cruz, and they're using this issue to smear him because they view him as the only credible threat to whoever they are winning the Republican nomination, whether it be Jeb Bush or Scott Walker or Rand Paul or Rick Perry or Mike Huckabee or what's his name, Donald Trump. They view Cruz as a very credible threat. In my opinion, Cruz is the front runner right now with the 50% chance in my mind to win the nomination. And if they all can get him down and get his supporters divided and confused over this issue, that's a huge victory for them. Most of the information you see being pushed out by this movement against TPA. Now, TPP, I can understand the concern over the transparency. I agree 100% with that. TAA, I agree 100% with the problems with that welfare thing. But I also see why they needed that to get Democrat support. But a lot of this is being spread by people trying to smear Cruz because he only voted for the TPP was because they're intentionally trying to smear him because they support somebody else for president like Rand Paul. I'm seeing a lot of this from the Paul bots, and you got to be careful. It's not worth responding if their mind is made up. If they have a closed mind, if they're not willing to listen, or if they support another candidate, don't even bother. If it's on your profile, if it's on your Twitter, don't respond or delete the comments. It's not worth it. If they have an open mind, then it is worth maybe showing them this video, showing them previous videos or articles. There's a lot of them, and try to help them understand the difference between these different bills. Somebody asked this, and I don't remember who it was. Why not wait until next year to pass TPA? I think it's pretty good, but why do we have to pass it now under President Obama? Well, this is why. because there has to be some support from the Democrats to get it out of committee and to make it filibuster proof in the Senate. And the Democrats are not going to support TPA with the Republican president. There's absolutely no way to do that. What they're doing right now is a compromise. The compromise is saying, hey, we'll give it to you 1 year under Obama, 5 years under President Cruz, or whoever the Republican is, because Republicans are most likely going to win in 2016. So we're going to give you 1 year under Obama in exchange for 5 years under Cruz and the next conservative president. And there's no guarantee that anything will get passed under Obama, and there's still no guarantee that anything will get passed under the Republican. We could still revoke TPA at any time. TPA allows Congress to remove it at any time. They don't have to use it. Well, if we wait until a year from now, when Obama's leaving office, the Democrats aren't going to give it to us. They're going to filibuster it. They're going to block it, and President Cruz will not have the ability to negotiate any free trade agreements at all. We haven't had a President Cruz yet. Imagine how fair, how good of a free trade agreement he can negotiate when he's negotiating for the American people. When he's not a Bush, a Clinton, or another Bush, or an Obama, selling out to the special interests, the corporatists, and the ideological wings of their party, when he's actually in favor of free trade. Imagine if we had that type of president, a Reaganist president. We can get some really good agreements in place that solve a lot of these problems we're worried about. But we can't get that done if we don't have TPA. And the only way we get TPA is right now with this compromise with the Democrats. If we don't compromise, we don't get it. And there's no way we can get these international jobs to come back. I mean, international trade jobs in the U.S., such as energy, agriculture, and there's a lot of manufacturing that also takes place. Now, if we, why now? That's the reason why now, because it's the only time we can get it done with Democrat support. Actually, the unions hate free trade, and Democrats hate free trade. That's why they let it expire in 2007. Pelosi killed it, and Harry Reid killed it. Pelosi killed it again when she removed TAA, because that was the compromise, right? We give you TAA, you support TPP. Well, Pelosi took a TAA out, making it only TPA, saying there's really nothing in it for the Democrats. This is too conservative a bill. It's only for Republicans. So now they think TPA is going to be dead because of that. And that's where it is right now. Matthew Boyle at Breitbart has been writing a lot of smear pieces on Republicans who support TPA, and specifically Senator Cruz. He's accused Cruz of being a sellout. He's accused Cruz of supporting one world government, being the Antichrist, and you name it. And he's openly supported Rand Paul in most of these articles. Matthew Boyle is a pawbot. Let's be honest. This guy is obviously supporting Rand Paul for president. He hasn't read TPP, and he goes around acting like he has, claiming he knows what's in it when he's never actually read the document. He misrepresents what TPA is about, and he misrepresents what Ted Cruz stands for, accusing him of supporting TPP when he has never taken such a position. And I'm not sure why Breitbart is even publishing his articles. He's just one of 100 writers there at that website, and he's chosen to narrow his laser at Cruz. And the pawbots are having a field day with this, spreading this everywhere and confusing people, confusing a lot of conservatives. He was on the Steve Dees radio show, and Dees doesn't know much about this issue, and he was like, this sounds pretty bad. Just going by Matthew Boyle's word, that's a huge problem. So pay attention to that guy. If you see anything from him, completely disregard it. He's pretty much discredited. His opinion, I've gone through his articles. There's not a lot of facts there. It's a lot of opinions and a lot of terminology thrown around. I think he knows what he's talking about, but he's intentionally trying to divide people, trying to confuse people. He knows he's misrepresenting the truth, and he's doing it anyway. The last thing I wanted to mention is, why does President Obama support TPA? Now, the answer to that is simple, but it raises another question. The answer to that is simple. If he wants any free trade agreement passed in his term, he needs TPA. There's no other way to do it. No matter how conservative it is, no matter how many restrictions that he has to give up in exchange for fast track, no matter how many strings are attached to fast track by Congress, he has to do it. He has no choice. Otherwise, he doesn't get anything. So he's pretty much taking a half a loaf here. It's a compromise for him too. But why would he support free trade? That's the question. Why would he want any free trade? Democrats hate that, especially the unions. My brother had a theory on this that was quite, disturbing. But I'm going to share it with you guys anyway because it's one of the best. My initial theory was that he wants to be Bill Clinton. He wants to be Hillary. When he's out of office, he wants to have the kickbacks. He wants to have these large speaking fees and, to take care of himself when he's no longer president, take care of his financial situation. So he thinks by doing this, the business community, who is also big supporters of free trade, the business community will take care of him when he's out of office. Doesn't sound good, but it's possible. The other theory that my brother had was that he was trading free trade, his support for free trade, which is a conservative idea, and TPA, which is also another conservative bill. He's trading his support for that in exchange for the Republicans, the Rhinos' support for his Iran deal. And that is a scary thought. So he's giving us something good in exchange for the Rhinos giving him something really, really, really bad in the future. This is pure speculation. I have no idea which one of these is true. I'm guessing one of them is true, and I'm not sure about it. But what I do know is that TPA on its own is not a liberal thing. It's not an Obama thing. It's a conservative thing. And we should try to understand why does President Obama want this. But we should also understand why does Senator Cruz want this. And there are a lot of really good reasons. It doesn't make him a sellout to support something that he believes is going to help Americans and it's going to help the economy. And that he believes is consistent with the Constitution and ethical. Senator Cruz is a good man, and I trust him. And even though I didn't know what happened in the beginning, I heard all these negative things about TPA. My biggest criticism with Cruz is that he didn't come out sooner and explain it. I was like, man, this sounds really bad. Did Ted vote for this? And I went and looked up to it, and I stayed, a little quiet on this issue because I wasn't sure what it was about yet until I understood it. And once I understood it, I came out and explained it to you guys, and I became more vocal. But Cruz is a good guy, and he's doing what he thinks is right. And I think we need to defend him and hold on to the fort because he's our only hope of winning the nomination, getting a constitutional conservative in the White House. Otherwise, we're going to end up with this, mushy, corporatist Republican candidate. And, why settle? Cruz is the best we have. Let's take the best. Thank you guys for watching. I hope this video was helpful. You can support me and support these videos by liking my Facebook page, sharing this video, and joining the Facebook group Ted Cruz 2016. Have a great rest of the day, guys, and let me know if you have any questions. Put them below. I will put a link to TPA in the description of this video. Take it easy, guys. Peace.